today's episode, we're going to be talking about a duo of overrated YouTubers, a DPS player that doesn't really care, and a pocket healer with an affinity for explosives. So just the other day, Nateson and I decided to meet up for some Overwatch quick play, and throughout our session, I have noticed that there were a few players that we have come across fairly frequently. Our faithful protagonists consist of Missing and Faye. Now, there was nothing particularly outstanding about the two, just your standard affair of a support DPS pocket duo. Considering that they were just two regular players, you might be wondering what event must have transpired for Faye to go on a massive tangent about why Nateson's not only terrible at the video game, but also makes terrible content. But I'm getting ahead of myself. While we have been sharing lobbies with the two of them in excess of a few hours, really no communication has been happening between us until we arrived on Lijiang Tower. The beginning of the match was fairly uneventful, and Missing has been pulling his weight, going in at the right time, securing kills, and making sure that his team came out on top. Sure, maybe Doomfist is not meant to 1v1 a Tracer out in the open, but that's fine, because Faye was coming to the rescue and hitting him up with that fad res. Remember the scene, because it will become a common occurrence. Showing off his 4400 SR prowess, he made short work of the Tracer that previously tried to send him back to the spawn room, and figured it was the right time to get the hell out of Dodge before eating rockets for breakfast. Now this is where he begins making really questionable decisions. While experts are debating the effects of wasting cooldowns on inanimate objects, Missing decided that high ground was the right place to be to make sure he can swoop down on his enemies like Batman. As much as I respect Missing's decision to not forsake the high ground that he wasted so many cooldowns for, sometimes you just have to know when to give up. Well, that realization obviously came in too late, and Nateson managed to land his first elimination on the opposing Doomfist, and that with a fadeaway teabag. Now for all of you who are not aware of common Overwatch behavior, it is universally very frowned upon to kill certain heroes without also teabagging. You see, the moment that Nateson decided to play Moira, he knew he was putting himself in teabag territory, and Doomfist as well was one such hero. I mean, hey, you can't expect to play some of the most annoying characters in the entire video game without also getting teabagged. Such is simply the way of things, balanced as all things should be. But hey, that's not a big deal, right? Dying to a Moira once, who can blame the guy? This was simply a series of unfortunate decisions leading to his eventual demise. Is what I would say if he didn't decide to try and get immediate revenge despite literally half of his team just having died. And hey, it's your boy. While our team marched onward into the enemy spawn, some grace of God finally made Missing realize that regrouping is what must happen for his team to have any chance to take back the objective. Just kidding, he literally did the same thing again. But wait, who's that? Faye comes flying in out of spawn to resurrect her duo and gave him another chance to redeem himself. And this time, he actually did something useful. Good job, Missing. The cherry on top of winning that teamfight was finally getting revenge on the Moira player that defiled his honor just a couple minutes earlier. But hold on a second. No teabag? No BM emote? No payback of any kind? It's almost like Missing really doesn't give a crap. The rest of the round was fairly uneventful. Missing died trying to stall the point, made another poor life choice that didn't involve queuing up with Faye, and lost the round with the last thing he sees being Nateson teabagging him once again. And this is where it happens.
Lol, imagine being hard stuck low GM and a bad content creator and absolute trash on Deep's teabagging a 4.4k to LMFAO. Big brain.
Now, pointing out the obvious aside, I really didn't understand why Faye was suddenly so upset. I mean, really, judging by the way that Missing was playing, it doesn't seem like he was particularly bothered by it. It's almost like he was not taking quick play as seriously as he would competitive play. Weird how that works out. But that did not stop Faye from writing up a storm in defense of her knight in shining armor. I mean, after all, he was the recipient of every single one of her resurrections in that round. But maybe that didn't tell the whole story. We have been very focused on Missing and his unfortunate decisions, but maybe Faye was particularly bothered by something that looked a little different from her perspective. Let's investigate. Failing to abuse a bug aside, using the completely intended super jump ability, it was apparent to me that Faye just tried to be a good pocket healer, but Missing had different plans. Seeing her perspective made me realize why she could potentially be a little upset. Missing proceeded to continue engaging in ways that did not allow her to follow despite her best attempts, and she had to constantly put herself in danger in order to scrape him off of the ground. Another thing that became very apparent was the fact that she just wanted to practice her super jump, whether it made sense or not. She would be attempting to do it at every opportunity possible, which granted made for some really fun death animations. but beyond that, didn't seem to understand that using it at all times was not exactly beneficial. But that's besides the point. Seeing your moronic DPS duo engage at times that really made no sense whatsoever must have eventually driven her mad. I mean, who is really at fault here? The moronic DPS for going in and getting killed, or the pocket healer that followed him without question and ended up alone behind enemy lines? Faye was now left to figure out how to get out of this mess, but thankfully for her, I have not yet mastered the ancient art of turning around. And as such, she actually managed to go unnoticed for quite a while. Thankfully for me, I did not need to turn around because Faye would gracefully run into my rockets to boost my ego. God, I love being a YouTuber. And this would mark the first of many of her eliminations via explosion. After Missing has been skillfully eliminated by Nateson once again, Faye comes in to save the day with a clutch resurrection. While I would describe her gameplay as clunky at best, even a broken clock is right twice every day, and as such, Faye managed to find herself at the right place at the right time. That res, however, was definitely not the play. And the rest of the round went as described earlier. Faye tried to be a good belt attachment and followed Missing in what would always result to be certain doom. After seeing the first round through Faye's eyes, I started to understand. Naturally, she must have known that her DPS still was not trying very hard at all. But if the best thing that you can boast about are the achievements of somebody else, then you know that it does not take long to burn your fuse. Not realizing that being a 4400 Doomfist player in the year followed Season 18 was not only not something you should boast about, but also something that warrants you putting your profile on hidden, Faye decided that speaking in his stead was the right move. Now, I am not an expert, but having your 4400 Doomfist players switch off of Doomfist and onto McCree on what is arguably the best Doomfist map on Lijiang does not seem like the play to me. But Faye must have decided that she ran her face into enough rockets for a day and maybe assumed that I would be moronic enough to play Pharah on a map that very clearly does not favor her. Armed with a healer in his pocket, Missing opted for a flank on the left side. Clearly, after his previous performance, Meku did not seem to believe that he could land 2 consecutive shots, and ended up being sent back to the spawn. Now, here's what's really confusing. Missing does not seem like an inherently bad player. In fact, he seems like a fairly confident player that just doesn't really care. However, every time he had the displeasure of either seeing me or Nateson, his aim started to deteriorate. For some reason, he had a lot of trouble hitting very easy shots. I mean, missing a Moira over medium long range is not anything worth pointing out, but even on optimal range, Missing seemed to have a lot of trouble making his hero of choice work. It's almost like somebody is nagging at him to finally take out that boosted YouTuber. Unfortunately for the two of them, they had to deal with more than just Nateson and I. My Zarya made sure to cover my Leroy Jenkins-esque attempts of running it down mid into the enemies, and between Hammond and Lucio, Missing would have a very hard time lining up his shots. If only he played a character that did not require pinpoint accuracy. While Missing's unfortunate aim degradation in light of our shining YouTube fame continued to hurt his performance, Nateson and I were determined to take this objective back. Our engagements were calculated, the use of our abilities was flawless, and the rotations of our team to peel for us and create space put Overwatch League teams to shame. The battle turned into a fierce back and forth of ever switching positions, and it was by skill, not by grace, that I managed to take out Faye and the Reinhardt that she just resurrected. A calculated elimination. I'm sure that standing still doing nothing is a good strategy in some universe, but let me tell you, this is not the one. While I managed to best his better half, Missing would finally come around and actually confirm a kill on a stationary target, but we were not done fighting yet. Missing was carelessly strolling around looking for a target to whiff some more shots on when it eventually dawned on him that his pocket healer was gone. But sadly, that realization came too late. Trying to back out of that sticky situation, he ran into the arms of Nateson and apathy. You don't need me to tell you what happened next. Meanwhile, Faye tried to join the battle once more in an attempt to hold onto the objective, just to be met with one of the coolest eliminations in anime history. My valiant sacrifice gave us a fighting chance, and I would quickly return to the battle. Upon my arrival, I decided to finally pull out my secret weapon and expose the remaining enemy team to my patented no fun allowed combo. Previously, we didn't really make any effort to specifically target Missing, but it was now apparent that we were trying to get into his head. Not to mess with him in particular, but because we thought that pissing off his girlfriend would make for great content. You be the judge of that. The fact that our strategy was working showed very quickly when Faye was forced to make a decision after respawning once again. She could either die to the boosted YouTuber who makes awful content that she despises so very much, or fly into proximity mines. Remember when I told you that Faye dying to explosive abilities was going to happen more than once? This was not all. You see, I deliberately have not shown you every single clip in which Faye needlessly used the super jump because, quite frankly, we haven't really been out to punish her for it. But eventually, she had to learn that there was a place and a time to try and practice this move. And this was not it. I am, however, happy to report that she eventually learned her lesson. Rather than running her face into it, she decided to neutralize the explosives by shooting them. I don't recommend you try this at home. Anyway, we could have obviously just won this round then and there if we wanted to, but we made a conscious decision to C9 off of the objective to extend their suffering. It was definitely not an accident. Throughout this last round, we have observed a strong correlation between Faye pocketing missing and missing actually getting kills. Sadly for him, Faye decided that he was not up to the task anymore. While Nate and I hit him with the old body shot into flanking combo, it took another resurrection for missing to dive bomb me and take me out of the fight, just to then immediately run his face into a bastion and die again. At this point, I have noticed that attacking him was kind of like beating a dead horse. Sure, it's fun to listen to the farmer's angry rant about why you killed his horse, but eventually you want to get a little more direct. Missing was barely present anymore, and as such, he really wasn't a threat. You could say he has gone missing. For some inexplicable reason, Faye decided that it was a great strategy to stand still out in the open while the enemy Lucio chips away at her health. I know we all have to do that annoying reduce buffering thing, but come on, there's a time and a place for it, and I think we have already established that Faye is not very good at that time and place thing. But for some reason, Apathy decided that it wasn't even worth his time to finish her off, as though something in his mind told him that he should leave her alive, let her think about her mistakes and grow as a person, realize that flaming others was not the way. I disagreed. Faye and her group had one last chance to assault the objective and reclaim control. If they were to fail this last attack, the game would surely be lost. So they grouped up, stuck together, and tried their best to somehow make a miracle happen. They may have just lost their main tank to a hamster, but surely with a little bit of elbow grease and confidence they would still be able to come out victorious. I disagreed. While all of this was going on, Missing decided that his purpose in life was to not play with the rest of the team and instead go on a flank as Hanzo. After achieving absolutely nothing of value, Missing opted for the high IQ play of jumping off the map. Unfortunately, Faye never managed to get her revenge on this boosted YouTuber and ended up losing the match. The end. By the way, in case you guys didn't notice, this video was hugely inspired by the Tales of a Happy Camper video from Barney64 as well as Ragtag's Apex Tales. I'll be putting their videos in the description below for you to check out because honestly, they're great and very entertaining, and you'll definitely see a lot of parallels while I'm trying to flesh out my own style. If you enjoyed this video, then do let me know by dropping me a like on your way out. Consider subscribing if you want to see more, and I hope to see you guys next time.